Everyone, I'm Wayne, and today we are going to be using Origami Studio to create something I call portal views, which is what this looks like. Open that up, scroll around, and close it. All right, it's going to be fun. Let's get into it. All right, a little bit more intro to what these are. You can see this in the Apple App Store, which is where I got the idea for this. I tried to replicate that. I'll insert a clip of that right here. Cool. So you can see that it's basically the same idea. You can tap into this asset, but you're not changing views or anything. It's the same asset being used in the menu view that is being used in the expanded view, and you can still interact with it beyond that, which is why I think it's kind of like a portal. You can pass through and still interact. It's bigger on the inside kind of thing. So here's what we got. This is the fancy version of the file, which I'm going to share and upload so you can open it up and dissect it. But there's a lot of things that are just beyond the actual core concept here. So we are not going to recreate this one from scratch. We're going to recreate a simpler version of this, which is over here. Over here. All right, so this is it with all the trappings stripped down because the rest was really just image assets and text boxes just dropped into it to make it look like more like an app. But fundamentally, this is it. Still the same idea. Click through, scroll through, close it, or close by using a threshold. This is what we're going to do, so it's going to be a lot easier. And we're going to go from scratch. Okay. Let me go through some overview concepts for you. All right, techniques that we are going to be going through with this. Scaling, easy, you got this already. It's just using scaling in a different way. Clipping masks. So we used image masks a lot in other tutorials, and we are not using those specifically. Really, it's just how we can use folders and the fact that you can use the folders to clip the bounds of folders in a little interesting way there. Scroll views have not used up to this point in any of the previous tutorials, so that's going to be interesting. Pretty simple to use, and there are some little tricks with it that I think are cool to know. And also the layout system, which I definitely have not used in a previous tutorial, and I haven't used that much at all personally either, but it's kind of like auto layout in Figma, so it's just going to make your life easier. So we'll also touch on that. Overall, it's not that difficult. It's just a combination of things to make this effect work. All right, so this layer system, before I show you the actual file, well, I guess we're going to build from scratch, so I'll just show you this first. It's pretty simple. It's mostly a set of folders that perform different responsibilities. On the lowest level, we have one that is going to control the scale for everything because everything within it gets scaled accordingly because that's how Origami cascades properties down, which is really convenient. Below that, we have clipping mask, which is going to help create that sense of this expanding into a broader portal. It'll be easier in practice, I promise. And the Scrollview group. So that's just going to be responsible for actually having a long pillar of content that you can then scroll around. And then the view assets just go inside. Really, really easy setup. So let's get into it, and we'll start from scratch. Okay, here we are with a blank file that I just made, just named it, and we are going to start off by just dropping in some assets and doing the initial scaling interaction here. All right, first of all, I find pure white background's kind of blinding, so we're just gonna put that into a fairly dark gray, and I open the layout view just so we could easily drop in a poster, which I think is this one that I exported. This poster, oh, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm using the right screen size. For these, I've generally been using the iPhone 13 Pro size, which is 390 wide, which is also what these are supposed to be. And for some reason, they kind of get resized slightly when I import them. So make sure that your assets are matching the width of the screen, or just scale them up to match either way. So here we are. And the reason I've set this to, and I'm just going to drop that view now because we don't need it. I've set this to full width because this is how I'm setting up the maximized view. I'm kind of going in reverse of how you might think and starting with this because I prefer this to be my scale 100% view because I'm going to do more at this view than the minimized version. So everything that I do, and it's outside the artboard, with this, it's actually going to be within a group. So this is, I just hit Command G there. This is going to be our scaling group. And what we're going to be doing really is this. So I'm just grabbing the scale of this entire group and dropping it down. From testing it out, I've found that 0.35 is pretty good. That's a good size for if you want to then put like a 2x2 kind of grid of that stuff together, you can do that. But now I don't have to worry about scaling the actual image asset itself. It's just going to be responding to its parent container there. Okay. So 2 things that we're going to do to make this a toggleable kind of state. First of all, when this is, let's just drop this down to 0.35 so we can go kind of in order here. 0.35. Something else I'm going to add to this group is going to layer, oh, actually we can just hit area right here and make sure that is going to be sized in the same. Let's see if we can just do 100% on this, because we just wanted to fully fill this thing. Sometimes it just doesn't really want to play nice, which is annoying. Didn't really want to play nice. Okay, let's just manually size it. And I'm just going to say 565 because that non-round number is unsightly. Okay, so this is 390 by 565. Great, now we have the actual hit area as it should be. So first of all, we're going to make a state for this, which is a switch. This is going to be our card open switch. And we are going to go ahead and make a state variable for this. Going to broadcast, make a variable broadcaster and make this the, actually this is our card open state. So we have the switch, we have the state there. Also going to change this type to Boolean. You could use a number, it'll still work, but I just prefer seeing that checkbox there. And we're just going to map this directly to that. And with the hit area, we're going to make a quick interaction there. And on tap, this is going to turn this on. Of course, nothing's happening yet. Let's just reset that. Now we are going to make sure that the scaling is popping up to 1. There's our scale. And we are going to use the card open state variable. Pop that receiver open. And we're going to do a transition patch. Change that to a number. Go from 0.35, which it currently is, 35, to 1. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and put the animation in. We don't need to draw that out. Gonna put a pop animation. It's a big, broad size animation. So I think that pop would be pretty nice. Put that speed up to 20 rather. Tap this, and there we go. It's going full screen, except we don't have a close yet because I don't want tapping on this thing to be the close. I want this to be now a draggable area for eventually it's going to be part of the scroll view. So I want more explicit close here. Also, we're just going to hide this thing. So we're going to make a close button. I have provided an asset for that, really basic assets in, well, let's just start here with a close circle. It's a little hard to see on this very strong background, but bear with me, we'll deal with that. I'm going to anchor that to top right and position that as -24 and 24. So that's 24 in from either side. Let's group that up. I'm going to call this the close button. And we're also going to put a little X icon in here. And anchor 0, 0, 0 position. Now we got a reasonable close button. And yeah, let's just stick with that for now. Keep it simple. Let's create a tap interaction on this. And this one is going to map over to turn off. And there we go. Open it up. Minimize it. So we could do a couple more things in addition to that, just because this looks, I mean, it literally is only just shrinking this thing. So it looks not at all special. Let's hide the close button when this is going to be going to that minimized state. So once again, we can just use the card open state. Going to drag that over. We're going to have the close button opacity. So we could deactivate it, but it's going to be so small, and it's going to be actually, if it's under the hit area, then it's not even going to be an issue when it's minimized anyways. You can't touch it. And the transition is going to be 0 when it is minimized, and fully opaque as 1 when it is expanded. Classic animation. I'm going to use 0.2 in general for the classic animation patches in this, which you could make a variable as well. I'm not going to bother because it's just not using it that often, honestly, so it's not a big deal. Close it. How embarrassing. Okay, what's going on here? What is happening? Oh, that's because the hit area. See, this is good because I actually want to do the inverse with the hit area. The hit area, when it is expanded, should be deactivated so it doesn't block any kind of collision. So we're going to grab the hit area enable. I'm going to move this card open state over here. And what we want is actually the inverse of this. When the card is closed, we want this to be open. So go into the patch editor or library, hit not. And this is all you need to invert a Boolean state. That's it. Not. Now the hit area you see is already immediately deactivated. So now you can reach the close button again, tap that. And now you just slow down the animations here. Tap that open. You can see the close button vanishes. But because it's all within this scaling group, its position still maps naturally to how it's shrinking down, which is really nice. So yeah, that is part of the basic open and closing, but it is still super, super basic. This is still fundamentally a poster shrinking and growing. So let's change that. Let's introduce another asset that we don't want showing up at all when it's minimized. Now this can just be, am I choosing the right asset here? So I'll include this. Going to drop in this long image that is really just text. So also the scaling group, by default, it's clipping content. We're going to turn that off because we're going to use another group entirely to clip content. But let's just zero that out. I'll do that there. So it's not really positioned right yet. It's kind of approximate. It's actually pretty close. But we have a piece of content now under it. But if we close this down, again, we are just scaling things down. There's nothing special happening yet, even though I can pop this open. Now here's where we start to get a bit more of that portal feel. Within the scaling group, if you remember the diagram, we have a clipping mask kind of folder. It's going to grab these two. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to group this one, just the poster. Put that in a group. Call this clipping mask. And I'm going to now pull this into it. So it's still in the same position, but the mask is still fit to the poster itself, and only that. So now we're kind of back to normal there, back to where we were 1 or 2 steps ago. But we want this on the expanded view, this mask, the clipping mask folder, to just extend to the bounds of the screen, not beyond that, just that far. And we know how to do that. So we're just going to drag that over. Oops. Use that state again. And we could be just connecting a single one of these. Honestly, I kind of like doing this because I don't like having this like weird patch strings at really extreme angles. So that's just a thing for me. Connect this here. And we know that the current size of that is 565 for when it is closed and is flush to just the poster. And the size of the entire device, I think, I'm just going to have to go over and look at Figma now to look at the size reference. Okay, I went to check, and it's 844 is where we want that to be when it is maximized. We're also going to do a classic animation. And I'm going to use quadratic out just because I know that does look better for this. And the clipping mask, height. Drop that in there. Drop that in there. So that's what it looks like when it is maximized. And you know what? I'm just going to, just so you can see it animate, I'm going to give it a bit of a stroke there. And let's close it. There we go. Let's slow down the animation just to take a look at how that feels. There we go. That's more of that Portal feel that we were looking for. Now, as a little bonus, just because those hard edges kind of bother me a bit. And the mask is, if we are going to round the corners on this dynamically and change the rounding on the fly, we want to be doing that with the clipping mask. That's going to be the most effective. So I'll just leave these red borders on as well. So because it's minimized, the clipping, the radius value is going to be more than you would think if you were just doing this at 100% scale. Let's say, that's still a bit much. Let's say 24 points for this kind of soft border, but I want that to reduce to 0 when it's expanded. Got nothing special going on here. You know what? We'll use that same variable on this one. So what we're going to do, and this was a little annoying for me to learn, is that you're going to have to actually hit the radius thing on the far left and get all 4 values, even though they're the same value, which is, again, annoying to me. And we're going to do transition, which is corner radius, which, boom. These just end up being long, which is almost enough reason for me to kind of not like using them. But it is what it is. So what we need here, and these are completely the wrong values here, 24, 24, 24, and 0, 0, 0, 0. Plug that in. Give us a classic animation. We'll use that same one. That's actually supposed to be over here in between. Plug that in. Change this to corner radius. Again, longest set of patches ever. And plug that in there. And now, close that down. You get a nice, clean rounding and sharpening, so it's still flush to the screen when we pop that open. Cool. Okay, I'm going to just zero out that width now because we don't really need that to highlight what's happening. And we are almost there. Now, the last thing that we need to do in terms of the major features is to make this scrollable. So we can't do it with the clipping mask because we want that to stay within the flush bounds of the screen. So we're going to make another group inside of this. We're going to do some extra features on that too to make this easier. So let's grab those, hit the group, and just name this Scrollview. And first thing that we're going to do is we are going to activate this, the layout. Just click this, and it's going to give you effectively an auto layout in Figma. So it's already set to vertical by default. And now these things are perfectly flush and stacked up. That's going to make it easier for us to mess with the scroll view, and then whatever contents we add to this, the scroll view is going to adjust in height accordingly. One thing that you're going to also want to change is this group by default has a fixed height. So I could like make that smaller, height that up, but I don't want to deal with that at all. So what you can do instead is inside the height field, just start typing auto. You'll get an autocomplete that, fit to children, hit there. And now this is exactly as it should be, except you can't quite tell because it's not scrollable yet. Easy there to solve. Quick interaction, scroll Y. And we're done. Well, you know, done for the core part of it. But that's why the layout thing is really nice. So now that the height is also set to auto, if I want to say like triple this up, it's still going to behave exactly as it should. So you can put whatever content you want in, and layout is going to help you make this pretty hands-off in terms of it adapting to how it's supposed to work. Okay. Yeah, that really is most of it. But there are going to be some glitches that you'll find and once we start adding a tiny bit of extra functionality here. So while this is good, mention that, and if you look at the App Store example, in there, when you drag down, it hits a threshold that allows you to also trigger a close, just like this, which is pretty nice. And there are a couple things already wrong when you start seeing this, in that I like the close button floating there when it's going below there. I don't like it as much when you're dragging down and it's floating, because now it's being unanchored completely from the view it's supposed to be closing. So let's deal with that. Ooh, actually, let's also deal with something else here. If I scroll down here and I close it, that ain't right. We want that to automatically always go back to the top when it hits that minimized state. So actually, let's deal with this first. The convenient thing here is we can just do that with a scroll view patch and a little bit of additional legwork. The scroll patch is one of those things that has a settings patch, which is an optional thing where you can add more variations to how it behaves. Scroll settings, go into library there, scroll settings, grab that, drop that in here. And if you look at the scroll settings patch, it has a lot of different options that you don't have to use, but the one that we are going to is jump to Y. So we can create a condition that is going to flash this, and it's going to jump back to the Y position that we've set here, which is 0 by default. So if I just scroll down there and you can manually just hit the pulse right now. Oh, it's not connected. We'll connect that first, and now hit the pulse right here. There we go. It bounces back to top. We're going to change this jump style from instant to animated. So there we go. Easy. So now all we have to do is when that close happens, we want to make sure it is hitting that pulse. So even though there's going to be a little bit of a spaghetti code, I'm just going to drag this over, drag that tap over, and also connect that to jump to Y. So if I scroll all the way down, hit that, boom, there we go. I really like this as well because in terms of this portal view, slowing down the animation here, it kind of feels like it's a gate shutting on the view, just closing that off. And I like that. It's kind of neat. So that's one thing. And now we're going to solve the X button, feeling a little detached when it gets to this point. So let's look at the close button. We're just going to grab the Y position. Now what we want to do here is we don't want to do anything to the Y position when the scroll, and we're going to be looking at this, the scroll Y position. When you're scrolling down, it goes into the negatives. When you pull that further down, it starts going positive. So we want this behavior to change only when it is above 0. So let's take this. We'll make a greater than patch. Greater than 0 is exactly what we want. And plug this in. So now we have a condition that is only going to be true when it's being dragged down. So we have a 0 or 1 effectively. So what we're going to do now is create an option picker. I'm going to reduce that to 2 options. And the first one is going to be 24 because that's the default. That is when it is not greater than 0. Plug that right in. And that's the value we knew was its already default value. So it's now using the option picker, but it's really not doing anything different visually. However, if we go and drag above, now we are accessing that second option. So now we can mess with that value to do what we want here. And it's going to be super simple. Make an addition patch. You can do 24 plus the Y value and plug that into that second one. And now, when it's above that value, it looks like it is locked to the position of this scroll view. Perfect. So now that we started messing with the Y coordinates on the scroll view, you can probably tell how we're going to make this also trigger the actual closing. All we have to do here is when this thing is, we're going to use another greater than patch, actually. Greater. Say greater than or equal to, let's just drag this down and get a look here. I feel like somewhere between like 120, 150 is fine. Let's start with 120. If it's greater than 120, again, plug that in there. We want that to trigger something. I'm going to call this, we're going to make a pulse here. So when this turns on, we also want to trigger that close button. Now this thing is way over here, and we're going to do some really annoying spaghetti connections here, but it'll work. You can always clean up in some other way. So if I take this and when this turns on, I want that to hit what this button is doing, the turn off on the card open switch. Let's drag that over there. And it's going to give us the option to replace or an and. We're going to use or. So either condition is going to be fine. The close button, we still want to work. But now, if we drag this down, it'll do that too. Great. And just by doing this, when we add details like this, sometimes you find other little speed bumps. If you see this, I'm going to do the slow animations again. I don't like that. I want that to scroll back up faster. Also, this thing, when actually the bigger problem is if I'm continuing to hold down, this is just busted. This shouldn't be happening. I want that to kind of like break free and just scroll to the top regardless. So, answer that is do the same thing that we just did with that button. We're going to drag this, and you can have multiple outputs from a node like this. And we're just going to also plug that in to jump to Y. Another or option. Which again, looks kind of funky. Oh, you know what? It was smart about it, and it just branched this off from this OR patch. So now, if I drag that all the way down, it immediately triggers that, and we're good. Now it looks completely correct when we trigger that, either from the close button, whether it is down here, or whether we are dragging down, and you'd have to be at the top to drag down to initiate that close. And there we go. You can, now I've used the lazy method of using an image asset here, but you could make a group that is full of actual text, whatever contents you want, and still all going to behave the same way. You could also do other things with, moving this into a grid kind of formation. You would also have to then do things to adjust the X position. Like I'm just going to grab the top level group here and move this over to, I don't know, like just drag it over there. So if that's a -80, you're still going to have to center that up when you do maximize that. Otherwise, you're going to get this kind of effect. But at this point, all that should be really clear at that point. And now this is just legwork now. So here we are. It's not, not pretty. There's a lot of crisscrossing going on, but it's still fairly basic. And there's going to be more details in the full file where I've done more of that kind of polishing work, and I've done the work to try and like group things together, break things into variables, so it looks more coherent in general. But the core functions of this are really, really simple. And now you've recreated the App Store feature kind of interaction. So I think that's kind of neat. Okay. That's it. That's the last tutorial I had in my plans for this origami series, to touch on a couple different neat interactions that are difficult to do in other prototyping programs. Hope you all enjoyed that. Would love any comments, and just tweet at me if you are making something with this stuff, or just making stuff in general with Origami Studio. I'm just kind of curious. I'm a fan of this. I don't get to use it on every project either. It is still kind of a niche thing for something that, I know I can't do in Figma, and it's going to add value, but it's so fun. It's so fun. I think when other people start using it, it's just it's kind of an energy boost as well to do something that isn't just screen to screen flows constantly, as important as they are. So there we are. Thank you for watching. You've been watching and watching the other videos. Really grateful for all the kind words and everything. So please like, subscribe, hit that bell is something people say, whatever. I'm going to make more videos. I'm going to switch off of the origami track for a bit until another idea comes to me. And I'm going to try some other ideas as well. But hopefully they will be interesting to you as well. All right. I'll end it off because I'm already rambling. Thanks again. Take care. And I'll see you around. Goodbye.